treats us like women. That's something you've forgotten too, Ralph. You seem to have forgotten that I am a woman.
How could I? You're always yapping.
When the Honeymooners first hit television screens in the 1950s, it quickly became one of America's favorite shows. Jackie Gleason's Ralph Kramden, with his booming voice and larger-than-life personality, had audiences laughing week after week. But behind the laughter and classic one-liners, there's a story most fans never knew. A single scene, buried in controversy and whispered about for decades, played a shocking role in the show's sudden downfall. What happened during that infamous moment? And why did it cause one of TV's most beloved sitcoms to vanish so quickly? Join us in this video as we uncover the truth behind the Honeymooners' darkest secret. The scene that ended it all. It happened on a night no one expected, a night that should have been just another episode in a dependable run of live television. The date was October 1956, and the episode was titled The Deciding Vote. On the surface, it was pure Honeymooners territory. Ralph Kramden, convinced that his single vote could swing a local election, wound up tangled in misunderstandings, self-importance, and inevitable humiliation. The script was clever, the premise relatable, and the live audience was primed for laughs. For most of the episode, things went exactly as planned. Jackie Gleason was in his element, larger than life, quick on his feet, tossing in improvisations, and thriving off the crowd's energy. But then came the moment that would change everything. During a heated exchange between Ralph and Alice, Gleason delivered his trademark bang, zoom, straight to the moon
Bang! Zoom! I'm going to the moon!
line. Normally, it was a comic threat audiences had heard countless times before, a running joke that had become part of TV history. But this time, it didn't land like a joke. Nothing in the delivery had technically changed, yet something felt different. Gleason's tone was sharper, colder. His body leaned in closer to Audrey Meadows. The playful space between them suddenly shrank. His voice dropped into a lower register, stripped of its usual cartoonish exaggeration. And with that shift, the punchline fell flat. No chuckles, no applause, just silence. The silence was heavy. Crew members backstage later said they froze in place, unsure of what they'd just witnessed. For the first time, Ralph Kramden didn't come across as a blustering but harmless husband. He seemed dangerous. And this wasn't a taped sitcom with laugh tracks to smooth things over. This was live TV. Every twitch and pause transmitted directly into millions of living rooms. In 1956, domestic violence was largely taboo on television, never shown with any trace of realism. But that moment felt disturbingly raw. Critics who once praised the show's honesty now called the scene too real. Letters poured into CBS, not filled with admiration, but concern. And backstage, the tension only grew worse. The truth was, the Honeymooners was already wobbling. Ratings were slipping. Sponsors complained about the show's increasingly abrasive tone. And Gleason's unpredictability in live broadcasts made network executives nervous. The moon line had always walked a fine line, teetering between silly fun and a hint of menace. But this time, it tipped the wrong way. Even the audience seemed unsure. They hadn't entirely withheld their laughter, but something had shifted. Was this really funny anymore? Audrey Meadows, who played Alice, had already voiced her unease about Ralph's outbursts in past episodes. She wasn't afraid of Gleason himself, but she knew how quickly a joke could turn into something unsettling for viewers expecting harmless comedy. That night, her instincts proved right. Nothing explosive happened publicly, no scandal splashed across the papers. But inside CBS, alarms were ringing. Executives held private meetings, and at least one major sponsor threatened to pull support unless the show toned things down. That was enough, quietly, without fanfare. The network decided not to continue The Honeymooners beyond its original 39 episodes. No announcement, no official explanation. Just a whispered end to one of TV's most iconic sitcoms. And while fans never forgot Ralph and Alice, insiders knew the moment Gleason's line stopped being funny was the moment the show's fate was sealed. But how exactly did the end come for the Honeymooners? Keep watching to find out. The show that vanished overnight. The end came without warning. No farewell episode, no announcement to prepare the millions of loyal viewers who tuned in each week. One week, The Honeymooners was there, and the next, it was gone. To the public, it was a mystery. To Jackie Gleason and those inside the studio, it was a decision born out of pressure, nerves, and the unforgiving economics of television in the 1950s. For Gleason, the cancellation wasn't just another professional setback. Ralph Kramden wasn't simply a character he played on screen. He was a piece of Gleason himself, shaped from the streets of Brooklyn, molded by years of hardship, and animated through the rhythms of live performance. To lose Ralph was to lose the one stage where Gleason could fully pour out his heart, humor, and rage into something that felt authentic. Friends later said he took the cancellation deeply to heart, as if someone had told him that his life's work wasn't good enough. Officially, CBS kept quiet. There was no public mention of the tense boardroom debates, the complaints from advertisers, or the chilling effect of that too-real moment in the deciding vote. But insiders knew the truth. The writing had been on the wall long before that night. Ratings, while still strong, had dipped just enough to spark concern. Advertisers were nervous about controversy, eager to keep television squeaky clean for the family living room. And Gleason himself was burning out. Producing a live half-hour comedy every week was brutal. There were no retakes, no safety nets, no chances to smooth over mistakes. The cast rehearsed 2 or 3 times each week, pushed by Gleason's perfectionism. And when Friday night rolled around, 60 million Americans tuned in, ready to either witness television brilliance or watch the performers stumble before a live audience. Gleason thrived on the adrenaline, but the grind was merciless. His heavy drinking, late nights, and restless lifestyle only added to the toll. The body and mind could only take so much. Yet Gleason wasn't ready to bury Ralph and Alice. In a bold and unusual move for that era, he secretly bought back the rights to The Honeymooners from CBS. It was a shrewd, forward-thinking decision that gave him complete control over the characters and their legacy. For the next 2 decades, he brought them back to life in sketches on his variety shows. The chemistry remained, and the laughs were still there. But something about the spark had shifted. The passionate urgency that lit up the original 39 episodes could never quite be duplicated. For Audrey Meadows, the abrupt end of The Honeymooners marked a turning point. She never pursued another sitcom. Instead, she redirected her focus toward business, eventually becoming one of the first women to sit on the board of a major financial institution, Consolidated Savings and Loan. Meadows had given Alice Kramden her quick wit and iron resolve, but in real life, her determination proved just as formidable. Art Carney, the lovable and bumbling Ed Norton, also thrived after the series. He moved on to films, earning praise for his talent, and eventually winning an Academy Award in 1974 for his performance in Harry and Tonto. Though he and Gleason stayed in touch, their careers rarely crossed in any lasting way. Carney would always be remembered as Norton, but unlike many actors trapped by a single role, he managed to escape its shadow. As for Gleason, he wasn't finished. Not even close. Despite the show's quiet demise, he still believed the Honeymooners had more life in it. He would eventually gamble on a second act, one that took Ralph and Alice to a completely new setting. But before its end, what was the show really all about? Stay tuned to find out. From sketch to sitcom legend. The Honeymooners didn't begin as the classic sitcom we remember. It started small, as a comedy sketch on Jackie Gleason's variety show Cavalcade of Stars in 1951. What began as a 6-minute segment quickly grew in popularity, eventually becoming one of television's most beloved series. Due to its overwhelming success, the sketches were carried over to The Jackie Gleason Show, and just a few years later, they blossomed into a full series, officially premiering on CBS on October 1st, 1955. At the heart of The Honeymooners was something simple yet groundbreaking, a portrayal of working-class life. The show centered on a married couple who argued constantly, but beneath the squabbles, revealed a deep bond of love and care. Gleason, who took over as host of Cavalcade of Stars in July 1950 on the struggling Dumont television network, had an instinct for comedy that reflected real life. After his first year on the show, he began collaborating with writers Harry Crane and Joe Bigelow to create something new. Together, they pulled inspiration from the arguments, frustrations, and struggles of real couples. The hugely popular radio series The Bickersons, which focused on a perpetually bickering husband and wife, also shaped their ideas. Gleason's goal was to show television audiences a slice of reality. Lower-income families struggling to make ends meet, fighting over bills, yet still holding on to love and affection. Several titles were considered for the new sketch, including The Beast, The Lovers, and The Couple Next Door, before they finally landed on the now iconic title, The Honeymooners. Jackie Gleason himself took the lead role as Ralph Kramden, a blustery, hot-tempered bus driver whose bark was usually bigger than his bite. For the role of Alice Kramden, Ralph's sharp-tongued but endlessly patient wife, veteran comedy actress Hurt Kelton was cast. The very first Honeymooners sketch aired on October 5, 1951. In that early version, Art Carney appeared, not as Ed Norton yet, but as a police officer who accidentally got hit with flour Ralph had angrily tossed out the window. Those earliest sketches carried a darker tone than the later sitcom episodes. Ralph wasn't just a blustering clown. He often seemed genuinely bitter about his marriage. Alice, as played by Kelton, was equally sharp, combative, and tired of the endless frustrations of their life together. Gleason drew heavily on his own childhood in Brooklyn for inspiration. He made sure the Kramdens' dingy apartment looked almost exactly like the one he had grown up in, lending authenticity to the set. Financial hardship was always at the center of their story. Interestingly, the subject of children was rarely addressed. Gleason wanted to keep that aspect out of the show. Still, there were exceptions. In one sketch, Ralph and Alice adopted a baby girl named Ralphina, only to give her back when the biological mother returned. In another, Ralph mistakenly believed Alice was pregnant. These storylines highlighted not only the couple's financial insecurity, but also their emotional vulnerability. As the sketches grew, so did the cast of characters. The Kramdens gained upstairs neighbors, Ed and Trixie Norton. Ed, played by Art Carney, became Ralph's best friend, a sewer worker whose childlike optimism constantly clashed with Ralph's temper. His wife Trixie was originally played by Elaine Stritch as a burlesque dancer. But the role was soon reimagined and recast with Joyce Randolph, who brought a more grounded, traditional presence to the character. Much like Alice balanced Ralph, Trixie balanced Ed, though she wasn't featured in every sketch. Gleason's fame soared, making him one of Dumont's brightest stars. But behind the scenes, the network was in trouble. By 1953, Dumont was facing severe financial struggles, leading to layoffs and cost-cutting. Between July and October alone, the network went through 10 major staff cuts. When Gleason's contract with Dumont expired in the summer of 1952, the network simply couldn't afford to renew it. CBS swooped in and signed him, giving him the resources and stability to fully develop the Honeymooners into a half-hour show. It was a leap from sketch comedy to sitcom history and the beginning of television legend. But how quickly did the Honeymooners skyrocket to fame? Keep watching to find out. The Classic 39, a comedy of struggles and schemes. When the Honeymooners officially premiered as a full series, it quickly became a sensation. During its original run, it rose to become the second most popular show in the United States. Audiences instantly connected with its story of a working-class couple, a rarity on television at the time, and laughed at how their everyday struggles were presented with humor, warmth, and just enough exaggeration to make it entertaining. Its catchphrases, especially Ralph's, became ingrained in popular culture, turning the series into something far greater than just another sitcom. Most of the show unfolded in the same humble setting: Ralph and Alice Kramden's small two-room apartment. The modest backdrop reflected their working-class lives with striking authenticity. Other locations included the Gotham Bus Company depot, where Ralph worked as a driver, the Raccoon Lodge, where he and Ed Norton spent their evenings, a neighborhood pool hall, and a park bench where Ralph and Ed often met for lunch. Occasionally, viewers also saw the Nortons' apartment, which was always noticeably better furnished than the Kramdens' place, adding another layer of humor to their dynamic. The episodes typically began with Alice at home, waiting for Ralph to return from work. While the show often centered on Ralph and Ed's misadventures, Alice played a significant role as the grounded, sharp-witted counterbalance to Ralph's temper and foolish schemes. Trixie Norton had a smaller presence and didn't appear in every episode, though she added depth to the friendships and mirrored Alice's role as a voice of reason in her own marriage. Each story was self-contained, with little continuity from one episode to the next. Common sitcom themes, jealousy, misunderstandings, and harebrained get-rich-quick plans were recycled into fresh, funny stories. Only a handful of times did a storyline extend across multiple episodes. One such case was when Ralph was sent to a psychiatrist after complaints about his impatience at work. Another was when Alice's Aunt Ethel came to visit, and Ralph schemed to marry her off to the neighborhood butcher. Ralph Kramden was portrayed as an ordinary man desperate to improve his life. But his own flaws always got in the way. He and Norton frequently came up with wild ideas to strike it rich. But their plans inevitably collapsed. When they did, Ralph was quick to blame others until Alice or Norton pointed out his mistakes. At that point, his temper gave way to guilt, and he would sheepishly apologize. Many of these moments ended with him embracing Alice and saying his most heartfelt line, "Baby, you're the greatest." It was a reminder that beneath all the shouting, Ralph's love for Alice was genuine. Ralph's temper, however, was central to the show's comedy. His outbursts often included exaggerated threats. At times, he would mutter, "Oh, you're gonna get yours." The humor didn't stop at Ralph's threats. His weight became a running gag throughout the series, with Alice, Norton, and even Trixie poking fun at him. These jabs gave audiences another reason to laugh at Ralph's blustery self-image. The classic 39 episodes that made up the show's only season were standalone stories, with major developments disappearing as quickly as they appeared. For instance, in TV or Not TV, Ralph and Norton buy a television to share, but by the next episode, it's gone. In A Dog's Life, Alice adopts a dog that Ralph reluctantly agrees to keep, but the dog never appears again. Still, while continuity was rare, the writers occasionally dropped in references to past events. These little nods created a sense of shared history without locking the series into a strict timeline. It wasn't until the 1967 trip to Europe specials that the Honeymooners finally experimented with ongoing storylines. This marked a rare and significant shift for the show. But for most fans, the original classic 39 remained the purest expression of its magic. Stories of struggle, love, and laughter that stood alone, week after week. So, what lasting legacy did the show leave behind? Let's find out. Lasting echoes in pop culture. Because of its enduring popularity, The Honeymooners has been referenced countless times in American pop culture and has inspired generations of television creators. Perhaps its most famous legacy is the way it paved the road for other shows, most notably The Flintstones. The sitcom also gave the world a handful of unforgettable catchphrases that slipped into everyday conversation. Bang, zoom, straight to the moon. One of these days, one of these days. Homina, 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 and, of course, Ralph's tender apology. Baby, you're the greatest. When The Flintstones premiered in 1960 on ABC, audiences immediately saw the resemblance. The animated sitcom, produced by Hanna-Barbera, followed the lives of a blue-collar husband and wife, Fred and Wilma Flintstone, along with their neighbors Barney and Betty Rubble. Critics and viewers quickly pointed out how closely the setup mirrored The Honeymooners. The loud, scheming husband, the sharp-witted wife, the goofy but loyal best friend, and his sensible spouse. William Hanna and Joseph Barbera openly admitted that The Honeymooners was one of their inspirations when creating The Flintstones. Jackie Gleason himself noticed the similarities and even considered suing, but in the end, he decided against it. Gleason later explained that he didn't want to be remembered as the guy who yanked Fred Flintstone off the air. The potential backlash, he knew, wasn't worth the legal victory. Instead, he let the cartoon live on, and The Flintstones went on to become a classic in its own right, with spin-offs and movies that stretched far beyond its original run. In its own time, The Honeymooners had already been compared to earlier works. Critics often likened it to the popular radio series The Bickersons, which also centered on a constantly bickering married couple. Others drew parallels to the legendary comedy team Laurel and Hardy, especially their film Sons of the Desert, which shared themes of male foolishness and the trouble it causes at home. While The Flintstones and its later spin-offs eventually developed their own voice and moved away from the similarities, there's no denying the shadow of The Honeymooners. Ralph, Alice, Ed, and Trixie left a blueprint that echoed through television history. Proof that even a show with only 39 original episodes could leave a cultural imprint that lasted for generations. What are your thoughts about The Honeymooners? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.